Hello,
Pinkies up, pinkies up. This is where the party at.
always. It's good to be back.
It's very good to be back. How are you, good sir, gentlemanly scholar of the land?
I'm just being a bro, being a good dude. And at the end of the day,
Nice.
sometimes you just end up as one of the three, usually the bro. But yeah, man, there's been some ups, some downs, but at the end of the day, I'm blessed. Not I guess I am too blessed to be stressed. That doesn't stop me, but I'm very blessed. So I have a lot more to be thankful for than I do be upset about. But I do
Yeah.
like to focus on the things I'm upset about.
I was gonna say, it's like, yes, we are definitely blessed, but at the same time, the stresses and the frustrations tend to make more of an appearance and are just more evident than uh than the blessings at times. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess when everything's going good, you're more focused on and being in the moment than your circumstances. And that's why you gotta take a pause every once in a while and be like, hey, this is a really good moment. I need to like fully be here. But yeah, when you're in the
Yep.
bad, man, it's much more highlighted in your day-to-day attitude and anything that you do versus the good stuff. Because we tend to once we get something good, we're just like, what? Great. I deserve that. Give me
Yep.
something else good. This isn't good. Now I'm mad.
And it's funny too, just how the small things tend to create the big trickle effects that last throughout the entire day.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I really believe that the devil will get after people. And he's been trying me all day. Like earlier this morning, we were talking. We usually talk on the phone in the morning. And
I ask him how his low T's doing to start the day and if it's giving him any troubles.
it was giving me a lot of trouble. I'm just gonna accept that this is here and it's not going away. But at my friend's place that I'm staying at while he's in Croatia with his wife. They have an espresso machine, one of the metal ones, one of the ones that you can take that tube and steam milk. Didn't even know that was a thing. And I was bragging about how good the coffee looked because we were talking about just enjoying coffee. And I was like, I'm gonna send you a picture of it. And like I went to send him a picture of it, and as I was doing it, it started to burn my hand. So I set it down, I pulled my hand back, and it caught on my finger as I was pulling it out, and then like threw half of it on my foot. And I
Now
did
his foot's burned.
it wasn't as bad as it was hot, but I mean it could have been worse. But now then I sent a picture and it just didn't do it justice at all in terms of how good the coffee had looked before. And it was just one of those moments I definitely let it go. Life goes on, but at the same time, it's just those little things that make the little cracks in the dam that let that water through.
Yep,
But at the end of the day, it's also funny because it just you gotta laugh at it.
it's true. It's and we were just talking about this. I guess diving just straight in, just events that have transpired, especially this week that have been more frustrating than not, but it's it's almost at a point to where it's comical, the amount of frustrations that have happened. That it's so repetitive, it's just become comical at this point, to where it's just like, "Ha predictable." And it's just like nothing new out of the ordinary, and it's just, it's a messed up satire,
Are you talking
it
about
feels.
sports betting?
Yes, I'm addicted. I put way too much money on the Cowboy game this past Sunday and lost it all. Just kidding. I would not bet on the Cowboys. I just don't bet in general unless it's on the stock market.
Yeah,
And,
gambling's not my thing.
slight tangent, I am kicking myself for selling Bitcoin when I did
I
because,
knew that was gonna happen. I knew that was
dude,
going. Well, I mean, but
it,
here's
uh,
that's the
it hit
story of
$92,000 per Bitcoin. And
how
it's,
much.
you want to know something crazy? So when Trump, hold on, real quick. I found this super interesting. Back in 2016, when Trump got elected, Bitcoin during, I think, as soon as he got elected in 2016, if not 2017, when he got into office, Bitcoin rose 20 over 22 or 2400% under his first term. Okay. And then it maintained even throughout Biden's presidency. Well, with Trump getting reelected, you're seeing similar trends happen so far where Bitcoin was literally floating. Oh, what was it sitting at? About 67, 68,000, I think, dollars per Bitcoin for months and months. I was like, all right, I want to sell. I want to buy a new gun so I could use the profits, whatever. It wasn't a lot, but it was definitely something. So get some enjoyment out of it. Bought a new gun, was able to save some from what I made
Great
as well.
gun.
So
Great
it
gun.
worked out. It was phenomenal. But hindsight is always 2020. Trump gets elected and it goes from like 68,000 ish dollars per Bitcoin to 92,000. And from what they're projecting, they're saying if it holds in comparison to Trump's first presidency or his first term, that by 2025, with the amount of increase percentage wise from the first term, Bitcoin could be worth $2 million per Bitcoin if it holds that same trajectory. So I'm
Well,
like, dang, dang. I'm like,
how much did you have?
oh, I didn't have a full Bitcoin by any means.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm just saying, how much did you like? What do you think you would have made on it at this point? Like
Oh, dude, I
thousand
mean,
bucks?
more.
Really?
Yeah, like more.
That sucks.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, it's the game you have to play, just like in the stock market.
But
Stock
I know
hits
how
its
you
all
feel,
time,
man.
huh?
I said I know how you feel. I mean, the same thing happened to me
Yeah.
with Tesla, even though it's not as
Oh, dude.
drastic. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Freaking Tesla now. Did you see what it's worth?
I'd rather not talk about it. But go ahead
I'm
and talk about it.
um currently it's worth $330 per share. And a couple days ago it was up near 350 to $360 per share.
The only flex I have is that I have 30 shares of Nvidia, and
Nvidia's
that's
doing well.
it's doing well. And I just hope that like if I'm just I've learned my lesson. I'm keep trying to do Face ID, but it won't let me in. I've learned my lesson with listen, this thing has value. It's proven to have value. Forget about it. Either
Yep.
put a recurring investment into it or forget about it. And don't sell it. Leave it alone. If you lose all your money, lose all your money. I'm not saying do that, but like to the point where it's just like if you get scared, don't pay attention to it. Because if something's
Yep.
there and it is very valuable and it has really good backing, like a company like Tesla, and anything can happen, but the odds are like Ford Motor, they're never going away. Like it will hold relative value, and the only downside you have is if it is there a long time, it might fluctuate a good bit even over a really long time, but I don't think you're ever going to get to a point where it's like close to zero. You're
Yep.
always going to have some value in it. And the worst thing that can happen is it will go up. So I'm just going to forget about my Nvidia. That money doesn't exist. And then in 30 years, hopefully I'll look in there and I'll be a millionaire.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because
I'll be
especially,
60. That's not great. Sooner than
yeah,
that. I hope it's sooner
hopefully
than
it'll
that.
materialize sooner than that.
Yeah.
But it's on the I don't know, on the AI front, especially with Nvidia and then honestly Tesla, it's because we're entering a new frontier of technology that has never been touched before, and
Hmm.
we're literally at ground zero kind of right now at the foundation. I
Hmm.
mean, theoretically, the sky is the limit at this point, and it's going to be interesting to see. I was talking with our CFO at work. I mean, we've talked multiple times about this, but what in the world could Tesla or Nvidia's market cap be? Like, what is their ultimate ceiling that, you know, how much can they continue to grow? And I feel like since we're entering such a new frontier of technology, I mean, theoretically, it's way, 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 way higher than what it is. So if any of those people are just kind of stressing about, should I sell? It's at its highest it's been, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, nah, I think everyone needs to be in it for the long haul. Just because especially, I mean, just looking at Tesla, dude, like the robo taxis and then the actual freaking helper robots, Optimus Prime that Elon's developing or
Yeah.
Tesla's developing. I mean, that's going to revolutionize how we do things. at base level.
Yeah, I'm really, I mean, dude, honestly, I'm
I know
hopeful.
you're skeptical.
No, I'm not. It's not that I am skeptical. You're right. But in terms of not in the way that I would usually be skeptical, it's something that I guarantee you is going to be a thing. But in terms of like, here's the one thing that has really, the one, all the good about Elon Musk, this is kind of, it's not even bad. It's just kind of like one of his, you know, he doesn't always follow through here too much, his timelines. He's very, very, very optimistic with
And
timelines.
very aggressive.
Yeah, very aggressive is a better word for it. But at the end of the day, it is going to be a thing. I think if in terms of it being like a real like walk around robot that's actually helping you complete tasks and things like that, like something out of a real sci-fi movie, I'd say that's going to be closer to when we're, getting close to death in terms of like when that's like we'll be in like our 70s
Yeah.
or 80s or something like
I
that.
That's what Elon's shooting for right now.
No, but I mean, here's the thing. You can have No, not even that. Like I was gonna say, you could have one, and that could like be distributed to a very small portion of the population. But until you see that as a regular technology, it's not going to be for a long time. Like they might have one, but until that's really in production and actually being utilized in a lot of households, I think it's going to be so expensive to do it that it will take a long time to permeate throughout, the levels of society outside of extremely high class. And even then, I think the functionality of the robot is going to be extremely, um, you know, limited compared to what our expectations might be. Because
Yeah,
that's gone.
it's gonna be, I mean, it's definitely gonna be interesting. If there was anyone I would bet on to do it, it would be Elon, without a doubt.
No, not even
Um,
bet on. He's actually doing it. Like
well,
he's
and that's the
actually,
thing, like if there's anyone to say I'm gonna do this in this time frame, like okay, it might be a little unrealistic, especially as you release generation one, whatever it might be. But at the same time, thinking of like Moore's law, how, technology gets exponentially better and cheaper as time goes on. And with the development of AI, as it gets better and better and better, who's to say we couldn't get to a point of having household robots that are fully functioning way sooner than what we would normally anticipate without the power of AI? From like a normal standards of development perspective, I
I think
mean,
AI is a quintessential part of that. I don't think
well,
there's
I know that's
one
what I'm
without the
saying.
other.
Like, as we get from generation, like you look at an iPhone, right? From generation one, there was like 4 gigabytes, or the first iPod or something like that was 4 gigabytes of storage, which
Yeah.
in today's time, that is nothing. And just looking over the last 20 years, close to 20 years that the iPhone's been out, how far we've come. But then
Mhm.
looking at just the last few generations compared to the first, 10, we've made that much more progress in that shorter amount of time frame to get where we're currently at. So that's going to be the same principle with these Tesla robots, that as generation one comes out, machine learning, what is going to make it better and how can we make it faster, better, to shorten that time frame to get to a point to where instead of us being in our 70s by the time it's fully maximized, that, it could be maybe when we're 45, 50 in the next 15, 20 years.
Mm.
I could see that being a very, very real possibility.
I think the scariest part of that was that you said 15 to 20 years when we'd be 45.
Forget the robots maybe taking over the world.
The fact that you
45,
just said
50,
that
dude.
out, damn, damn,
Dang.
15 years, which is like, and it goes by in the blink of an eye, man. Think of like when you were
Yeah,
15, and now we've done that twice, plus one.
that's some math. That was really good.
I prepared.
Well
I did a
done.
lot of studying to make sure I could do that live.
Do you have Chat GPT off to the side doing these calculations for you?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
I love, dude, that saying that originated from the government. We can neither confirm nor deny, because it's just like when there were press conferences and all that happening, they didn't want to give the answer, but they also didn't want to lie. So they came up with the most cliche, dumb answer of all time. It's like, we can neither confirm nor deny, which basically most of the time alludes to the
It's
fact that it's true.
well, I mean, there's no getting around that. That's essentially, that's like pleading no contest in court.
Right.
It's like that. wait, what? Like
Yeah.
that just like that's it's crazy that there's like the bureaucracy, not even say bureaucracy, the structure of like when you follow rules to the T, how sometimes that can be like detrimental to what you're actually the rule is designed for.
Yeah.
In terms of like when it's like that's crazy that that's an acceptable answer. We can neither confirm nor deny that. It's like, well, we're gonna need one of them. You
Yeah.
know, that's not an answer.
Dude, and speaking of that, did you hear any of the UFO hearing that happened
No, I
today?
did. I didn't watch it, but
I
tell me about
didn't
it,
watch
please.
I didn't watch a lot of it, but from what comments were saying
Wait,
after the fact,
before you go, set the stage.
UFOs are real. We've been in communication with them.
I believe that, but I'm
Yep.
just saying in terms of what you're talking about.
Yeah. So over the last couple years, this is only the second one, which is honestly mind blowing. The second congressional hearing when it comes to firsthand accounts from especially US military, when you have pilots flying around off the coast of California, the East Coast, et cetera, and all these quote unquote unidentified objects that these pilots see flying around in our airspace, where we're getting, radar readings of them, basically seeing objects that defy the laws of physics and feeding into a lot of different stuff. Bringing all this information to the attention to the American public because
Yeah,
everyone's wondering, we're hearing a ton about this stuff, but what actually is it? What's happening? So a couple years ago, they held the first congressional hearing over the UFO stuff, bringing in Navy pilots, military individuals, um, from Navy warships too that have captured on radar. They have FLIR video of these things, just all different aspects of information gathering to civilians as well that have collected information, that have gotten multiple eyewitness accounts, etc., just to bring it to the forefront of
yeah.
what the heck are these things. So today they had their second congressional hearing over this. I wasn't able to
Ever,
catch all of it because it was
ever.
during
I think there's only ever been one like before
n-
this at all ever, and this is
yeah,
the
this
third
this
one
was
to
the
ever happen.
this was the second one.
No, I'm saying in terms of there was one way in the past, but they really just they made a joke out of it. And they like pretty much just said like, yeah, there's nothing. That's so stupid. I'm pretty sure there was one in the past. And this, the biggest deal was that it happened again. And then now this is like the third one to ever happen. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's been more than three. But from I think there's at least one more before.
I'm pretty sure they were saying today was a second one because
No,
if
today
they
was the
did
second one in terms of the
it being legitimate, maybe.
well, well, I mean the in terms of modern times where it was like the first one was a year or two ago, and then this one is the second one. They're not going to talk about the one that was a fluke, but look that up real quick while we're talking
Yeah,
about it.
the link I sent today from X, it was space.com who was live streaming it. Second UFO hearing
No,
held by US Congress.
yes, but the second one in today's times, I think there was one held in the past. It was just laughed off, and that was how they just essentially were like, yeah, UFOs are stupid, but they like did it to satisfy the public. But in terms of it recently happening where they're being called by Congress to do it, I
Well,
it's just
either
either
way.
way.
Yeah, this was the second legitimate one that is actually having attention put to it. But I wasn't able to watch the majority of it. Just caught a few glimpses of it. Lou Elizondo was on testifying. He was on
Yeah.
Joe Rogan recently. Really interesting perspective from his side of things. But just kind of scrolling through some of the comments, the generic "we can neither confirm nor deny" um, kept popping up. Like, we can't answer that. We can't answer that. So when Congress was trying to pound questions to these intel people or whatever it is, it's like, we can't answer that. We can't answer that. So we kind of got another pseudo runaround of bullcrap. But one of the interesting encounters that they talked about that I did catch a glimpse of was it was a Navy warship. I don't know if it was like East Coast, West Coast, but it was going, and then all of a sudden they see this object. They detect it in the water,
Hmm.
and it was moving at the speed of a Russian torpedo. So, like moving really, really fast. But then as it got closer to the ship, all of a sudden it started to slow down. And then once it got to a maintained speed similar to that of the aircraft carrier or the warship, it
Hmm.
started literally methodically following them underwater. And
That was
I,
me.
it was, I had a feeling.
I was
Yep,
lost. I was trying to find my way home.
it makes so much sense now. But
Don't tell them
it's
that.
it's interesting because previous hearings, you always heard, they're transmedium devices, meaning yes, they can fly, they can go underwater. Basically, it doesn't matter what the surface is. It's fully able to go into it regardless of what it is. It's
The
transmersible.
medium by which they fly is interchangeable.
Yes, or operate. And this was one of the first ones. Like we'd seen them, disappear from the air into the water without making a splash, which was really interesting. That it can go through like a physical barrier without disturbing or having a reaction of what it's going through. But this was one of the first accounts, at least that I'd heard of, where it's been strictly underwater following Navy warships.
I've heard of more than one in terms of that. I mean, if you listen to the Sean Ryan podcast, I'm starting to realize the shirt's too tight. But,
Shop at
that's
Child's Gap.
me. Anyways, there was one on the Sean Ryan podcast, and he was a submarine operator, and he was no, actually, no, it was a one of Congress guys or something like that that's like very deep in it, or a guy who's like very he's in the government in some way, shape, or form, and he's also very involved in this, and he's looked into it. And I think he was the previous defense secretary at one point or something of the sort. But he talked to a submarine guy who they were underwater and something very similar happened. They thought that, and feel free to if anyone looks this up, I might be getting some stuff wrong, but they thought there was a torpedo coming. All the alarms were going off, and same thing. It started to slow down, or they thought it was just another. They thought it was a it was another war submarine
Submarine. Yep.
from just a different country, and it just got right behind them and followed them for like 3 hours, and
Hmm.
then disappeared in like an instant. But it was
Interesting.
like very close to them. But yeah, that's in terms of especially fishermen being out, in few miles off the coast and whatnot, and just seeing something come out of the. And it's like you can sit there and be like, "Oh, that's so dumb," or just you can say whatever you want about what we're saying, but at the end of the day, these stories are not all debunkable through one common factor. There's so many of them in so many different areas of being able to tell the story: the water, the land, secluded places at home. I mean, there's definitely people out there that are lying or that are making something up or believing something or that are mentally unstable and not able to recollect real reality or experience it like we do. But with the amount of it of the amount of stories that there are, one person has to be telling the truth. Same thing with ghosts. You can't just blame ghosts on every single person who's ever talked about it being psychotic. I've seen real stuff. I know my grandmother has seen some of the realest stuff that you would never believe. But if you say that out loud to someone, it's just like, it's crazy how easy that is to dismiss, even though if you were to talk to the person, you wouldn't say to their face that you're lying.
Yeah. There was just on the note of this stuff becoming more legitimate as time has gone on. Michael Schellenberger posted something on X today regarding it's called the Immaculate Constellation Report on the US government secret UAP or UFO program. And this was
Hmm.
from a whistleblower that released it evidently today. And I'm going to read a little bit of it. It's basically regarding, or you know what? I'll just share my screen so you guys can see it too.
Yeah, fucking
Here we go.
oh my god.
All right. Can you see it?
Yes, yes, I can.
So this was regarding technologies of unknown origin. Basically just going into a brief introduction, but what was
And hold
interesting,
on, you missed a huge part. Stop.
hold the phone.
Go back. This document is the result of a multi-year internal investigation into subjects of unidentified anomalous phenomena, parentheses UAP, underlined technologies of unknown origin, and this is the part you missed, and non-human intelligence. This
Which, yeah,
investigation was undertaken in response to urgent and credible threats to public good and safety of the United States of America and provided to Congress through the UAP whistleblower mechanisms established by the FY 23 National Defense Authorization Act. Yeah, okay.
yes.
Pretty much this is a Word document Chase typed up earlier.
Yeah, I use ChatGPT.
Good one.
Let me see. So the bracketed columns, the categorization of immaculate constellation as a parent USAP with various child SAPs under its umbrella indicates a high level of compartmentalization and secrecy. In effect, immaculate constellation serves as a central or parent USAP that consolidates observations of UAP and ARV activities detected by tasked and untasked collection platforms. So basically, they're starting to build umbrella corps or organizations dedicated to UFO research and discovery. Fast forwarding to the next bracket. In conclusion, Immaculate Constellation shows that the USG is not only aware of UAPs and TUOs, but also foreign state efforts to replicate UAP and TUO
That's
capabilities.
technologies of unidentified origin and
Origin.
unidentified
Yep.
aerial phenomena.
So we are actively
Anomalous.
trying to replicate and recreate what we're
And so
finding.
are other countries, lots of them. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not something that's limited to us. And man, I feel like I'm projecting this, but at the same time, I just hear people just being like, "Oh, whatever." I'm just like, dude, just look into it. Like, don't just dismiss it because you can't wrap your mind around it. But this is just it's like one of those things where it's been so dismissed for so long, and it's been so easy to put someone in a certain category because of it that you could literally have aliens land in someone's front yard and they'd be like, "Oh, that's fake."
Yeah. And I've been thinking about this, like with Project Bluebeam, just
Yep.
the hologram technology that has been supposedly in development for a long time, that we can project stuff that is unbelievably real that you can't tell if it's real or not. As time has
I
gone
can do
on,
that with my feelings.
nice. I have a feeling we'll be getting into some stuff here in a bit, but
What? What?
whatever. What are you talking about? But as technology, as time has gone on, technology's gotten way better. Do you think technology has hindered the human race or helped it more? And I know this is a loaded question because it's
No, it's
both.
not. I've got an
It's
answer.
okay, go ahead.
So I've always thought about this. You know, technology in and of itself is something that is usually stumbled upon, not necessarily stumbled upon, but in terms of the catalyst for it, whether it's something, a rock falling and someone seeing a spark and realizing that that happened, or seeing somehow a fire starts and trying to replicate that. Like technology and the innovation or finding out that it's there to be innovated is usually kind of stumbled upon. And we happened to stumble upon electricity, but there's been a lot. I mean, Tesla's this was all of Tesla's work talking about how there really is a different energy field that can be tapped into and
Yep.
utilized that's way better than, or it's electricity, but it's sourced from a different way. So I always think about what if the first thing we had actually stumbled upon would have been water based? And then what
Mm,
if we would have developed our entire society around water and using that as a means of propulsion somehow, if we had somehow stumbled upon that? Or what if it had been, like we think the Egyptians were, more of a, energy, like more of the Tesla idea of like being able to tap into energy that's all around us all the time. You know, it just all that matters is, and it's a crazy chance, and some of the chances will lead to nothing, but it's like it matters what's stumbled upon. And I always wonder what it would look like if we would have stumbled upon something differently first than electricity in terms of the way that we utilize it and conduct it. And gas. I mean, actually, no, gas is the main one I'm speaking of. Electricity is a different one. If we would have stumbled upon electricity in the way that you could tap into it through Tesla's means of being, more of an overall energy source versus stumbling upon gas-powered engines and figuring out how we could take minerals and explode them and that create pressure and allow it to push something, what would our society look like if it had developed around something else? So, do I think technology has hindered the human race? The wrong technology has hindered the human race, but in terms of, I do think there is a right answer to the most efficient thing that's most beneficial for everything involved. And I don't think that we're on that. But if we would have stumbled upon that, then my answer would be no, technology does not hinder the human race. It equally adds to it. But there's multiple energy sources. We happen to stumble upon one that's very predatory in terms of how you get it, keeping it, taking it from others. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, in that sense, like the overarching technology, but when it comes to technology of, I think it's like a double-edged sword. Like it can be beneficial, but it can also be detrimental. Like just thinking of phones. Phones are a great advancement. Just the ability to have access to knowledge, within a couple seconds for as
Mhm.
fast as you can Google something, right? Or staying in communication with someone or
Which has
whatever it
been
might be.
something that's been non-existent for the entirety of humanity, and it's extremely
Correct.
new. And it's also, if you would have asked anyone going up to the idea of being able to do that, they would have and be like, "Would you do this?" They would have been like, "Yes, that would be the most that it would be to be able to talk to someone across the world and say what I
Yeah.
need to say without having to travel." Of course, you know. So, yeah.
Yep. But it's the double-edged sword of like, that's crazy beneficial, super cool that we have the ability to do that. But at the same time, how much it has created a gap in society when it comes to ability for people, not everyone, but you're seeing it in the younger generation too, advancing towards becoming less social,
Mhm.
less of an ability to actually have a full-on conversation, like bringing thought to a conversation.
I have an
You know,
opinion about this too.
yeah, I mean, go for it.
No, no, no. Keep finish what you're saying.
No, I mean, it's just basically just that. I mean,
Yeah.
we're losing the ability to literally think in a way because now we have access to chat gpt. Like you're having students going through high school and college. that
Oh,
was that was a
so
stab in
scary.
Keegan right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're using chat gpt to be plugging in information, be like, hey, write me a paper about Napoleon Bonaparte.
Well, I do think that like in terms of when I do use ChatGPT now and I'm like, "Hey, respond to this email." And it's gotten annoying for me to respond to an email without ChatGPT. But in my entire life and professional career before that, which was not a bunch, but it was all me doing that manually and actually doing it. And the I understand like how where some of my creativeness is zapped because I'm like versus me having to think through this, I procrastinated it. You give me the answer, and I'm just going to keep giving you critiques until I like the answer. I'm
Yeah.
not having to critically think through the problem, and and I know that no matter how old you are, that's not going to do anything amazing for you because the moment that you don't have that, those are just muscles. There's atrophy, and if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, well, I mean, to more address your point, the people that are growing up now that are kids, that's who I'm worried for because
Exactly.
the idea, well, I mean, not even just, I'm talking like the kids in high school now, at least even I mean, it's going to be very detrimental because they're going to go through college with that too. But I'm talking about the kids who are never going to know anything different. The ones who are just like, that was AI was always a thing. It was always a thing growing up. Just like Instagram was created when we were growing up. It was not always a thing.
Yeah.
Um, for my younger sister, it's always been a thing. Instagram was around when she was born. Actually, I don't know, was it? No, I actually don't think it was. So I'll give her that. But and that's I'm not gonna say my sister's name on a podcast that's this famous.
Yeah,
Um,
it is pretty famous stuff.
yeah, I'm not gonna throw her out there like that. But yeah, that
That's
was
nice.
essentially my point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just looking at students today, well, first, before I go down that road, I think we're in a point in our education system, especially now more than ever, to where school choice needs to be a thing.
School
Like,
choice? What do you mean by that?
so school choice, this is what I mean, the state of Texas is fighting for. So right now, as a homeowner, okay,
Yep.
give you a little lesson about some
Subtle
property
flex.
taxes,
Subtle
some
flex.
some property tax knowledge. So if you own a home, part of your taxes go to your school district. Okay. It's been that way for a long time. Um, Now we're at a point to
Died.
where Texas is starting to talk about, hey, maybe school choice should be a thing to where instead of me, for example, I don't have kids, not that I know of, um, that
Oh,
I'm
got him.
that I'm sitting here, as a single young man who has a home that I'm paying into the school system to where I'm not seeing any of that benefit come back to me. I'm getting thousands of dollars taken off of me every single year when I don't have kids in the public school system. So Texas is starting to talk now that, hey, maybe we should start implementing school choice or at least pass a bill or a law to allow families, like, if they want to put their kids in private school, guess what? They're double paying for education. They're still paying part of their property taxes that go to the school district, but then they're also having to fork out an additional amount of money on top of that to put their kids through private school. And what school choice would do would give families vouchers. So, like, if they have $8,000 a year going to a public school, they get an $8,000 voucher or credit basically to where they can choose to apply that $8,000. If they want to put their kids in private school, go for it. That $8,000 will go towards private school instead of it going automatically to public school to the district that you're in, which
It's so crazy
honestly,
because I don't understand what the argument would be against that.
correct.
Well,
It is
actually, no,
mind
I guess
blowing
I
that
do. I
it's
guess I do. I guess I do. I guess I do. Let's say there was a larger wealthy population than there was a middle class and poorer population. Then they would have a lot less money towards the school system, public school systems, to be able to create good schools.
but as a caveat to that, when
I'm
you
not saying that
have
I'm not
no, I
arguing
know.
for it. I'm just
Y-
trying to at least
Yeah,
find out where someone would look at me and go, but there is another side to this that you don't know.
for sure. But ultimately, that money would still be in your pocket. So if you want to send your kid to whatever public school or whatever, you would still contribute to it. It wouldn't matter because
No,
either
but in
way,
terms
you're just
of when you contribute to tax for the schools, you're not just contributing to where you're contributing to the idea that it takes a village to raise a kid and everyone's pitching in to make sure all the kids can go to so your money is not distributed in one way or another. It is, but if it's distributed towards the entire program, not like one kid. You're saying that hey, charged 8,000 in taxes. So versus 8,000 in taxes, take that same $8,000 and apply it towards a private school education, which would be a singular application of the money. The
correct.
other application is a wide application in terms of everyone's pitching in to try to
Yeah,
theoretically
it's a
create a good
giant
system.
pool for
Yeah,
education.
yeah, it's socialism. That's exactly what
Legitimately,
socialism
it
is.
is socialistic education.
Yeah, I mean,
And
and
that's,
there's
people
listen,
could call
there's
us out for like or thinking about it like that, but ultimately it's socialistic funding for
well, I
your
mean,
kids' education.
there's there are parts of and I'm not going to claim that this was my original point, but I agree with it. And Joe Rogan has said this. There's parts of socialism that work and that are good. You like a fire department, right? That's socialism. You like cops, right? That's
Yep.
socialism. I'm not saying on a large scale it works, but there are things whenever everyone pitches in for the greater good of the community that it does come through as a good thing. It's just
Yeah.
applied on a large scale that can never support everything, and it's always going to create the disparity that you're, or not the disparity. It's going to create the problems that you are trying to fix inherently, because you can't spread everything out and make everyone happy because people are individuals. So there's aspects of socialism that are widely accepted every day. We just when we talk about it, we're usually talking about applying that to an entire nation of people.
Right. And then where school choice comes into play, or at least public education system, especially in the last few years, critical race theory that has infiltrated public
Oh,
schools beyond
that's
belief.
done. That's done, son. And
Yes,
I'm so
but
happy.
what was interesting about that, like for those schools that are still loosely holding on to it and teaching that stuff, like teaching about LGBTQ, LMNOP, QRS, whatever in school today for middle schoolers,
Yeah.
especially like looking at California. I mean, California is its own separate thing. We're not going to talk about them, but think about this. Okay, you pay into a public school educational system, right? If we introduce school choice, that would introduce competition when it comes to the education system. So if you have parents that are like, I don't like what my kid's being taught, if I have a voucher that I can pay to put my kid in a private school where they're being taught classical education from phonics to the classics to rhetoric to philosophy to logic to etc., and we're not learning critical race theory or LGBTQ plus stuff, that's going to drive up competition. So if you have more families pulling their kids out of the public school education system, what happens to that general public education system, that school? It's going to have to change or it's going to die. And ultimately, when you introduce competition to anything, looking at business, looking at the economy, you can't have a monopoly. A monopoly is never good for anyone. So when you start to introduce competition across the board and then in education, think about what that's going to do for the future of our students. So when it goes back to AI and all this stuff where kids aren't having to be like forced to actually think for themselves, that it's like, okay, if I'm going through a harder, more rigorous school, what is that going to do to help my kid, actually develop their brain going forward?
Well,
But then also getting rid of terrible, terrible things that you teach kids when they don't need to be taught that stuff, especially at
listen,
the age that they're being taught today.
hold on. At the end of the day, every parent has the right, outside of things that are criminal or abusive, which fall into the same category. Every parent has the right to have their kid taught what they want to have their kid taught. I can disagree with what you want to have your kid taught, but they have the right to do that. Now, in terms of that being put into a public government funded setting, I think the problem you're addressing is not the problem. I don't think that competition, it's not as if private schools are a new thing and
No,
have
I know they're not a new thing, but they
obviously,
also
I
don't
mean,
teach a lot of the stuff that public education
I'm not
systems
saying
do.
they do or don't. I'm just saying in terms of public school isn't competing with private school because private school or public school is paid for by the government. What
Correct.
what the problem is the government has not spent the money in a way that develops public schools to actually teach people how to critically think. It's more become a benchmarking of can you pass this or this? And if you can get through that, then you must be smart enough to get through this. In terms of the actual problem, the problem is that one is valued less than the other, that you value something that you put more into. So the thing is people have less of a confidence in public schools because they don't see the value in them being able to actually teach their kids to be educated and critically think through complex issues as they go throughout life or whatever you want to compare school to. But I do think that we could change that because think of when it was back in the old West times, like in the idea of kids going to school, like people, or not even the old West times, anytime before that, school was like it was a rarity. Not everyone got to go to school. So if you went to school, not only did you go, you appreciated it. And if we could, and I'm not saying I have the answer, but if we could take that same perspective and put it on public schools now, we wouldn't need private schools for anything outside of a religious intention because we could make sure both are good enough. But if you want to have, just like you have every right, if you want to have your kid raised in a certain religion alongside school, then that is 100% your right as a parent, and there should be nothing stopping that. And there's always going to be groups of people that want the same thing. So I think that's the only thing that should separate public and private schools is the idea of that you either want your kid growing up with a God, and I think that me personally, I wish the country was more focused on God in general and like one nation under God, indivisible for liberty and justice for all. That was what I grew up saying under God,
Yep.
and that was something that I felt like was productive in terms of unifying people and
And
understanding
has since
there's a
gotten
higher power.
removed because the public school education system removed it.
And I'm not saying that I support that, but I'm not saying that there's not a good argument for people who don't want their kid raised up in that
Right.
way.
No, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's where school choice comes in, and when
Yeah,
you have school
exactly. And that's
choice,
I'm an
that
advocate
creates
of it.
that creates competition, and if a public school is not doing what they need to be doing, or they're getting complacent just like a lot of things in life, that maybe it takes something to shake the branches for them to start changing. And that might be having school choice where families are going to start pulling their kids out to send them to a
Okay.
private school or a
Then I
charter
agree.
school
I
or a
agree with what you're
Montessori
saying
school.
then. I
Yeah.
agree because that now well, I just talked forever for nothing. But but I agree with what you're saying in terms of introducing the idea of that could definitely make public schools have the incentive to be better public schools and get
Yeah.
to the point that I was talking about.
Because competition just it elevates the
I
standard
wouldn't
for
consider it
everybody.
competition.
Well,
Actually, I
competition,
would.
yeah,
I
it is. It for sure is. Because like if you're not doing something to constantly just
but
get
that's
better when
only
there's
competition if people can afford it. That's the
But
only
that's
problem that
but here's my thing. When you start introducing school choice and you can all of a sudden have a family that's able to send their kid to a quote unquote private school where previously you had to pay $8,000 to $10,000 a year to go to versus you're having that money go to from your property taxes, your taxes in general to a public school district anyway, that you're able to divert those funds that are forcefully pulled from you to be put into the public school education that you can now use to go towards a private school.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's just
makes
like,
sense.
man, it's a win-win. Like, and like I right now, I feel like I'm being robbed. Like, thankfully, okay, I am in a good school district. I've heard great things. Have no experience with the school district whatsoever, but from what I'm told, it's good. But at the same time, there is a big part of me that is frustrated that I'm having to sit here and pay into this pool for all these other people's kids to go to school. And I'm like, I could be using this money elsewhere for me,
Yeah,
you know? And like
I could be going out and snagging
could
some
be partying,
whiskey
dog,
and cokes.
Like I could be buying all kinds of cool stuff. Be buying my next watch, which I figured out what my next watch is going to be most likely, but
What is that?
it's a Grand Seiko SBGA 413. Um yeah. I'm not going to go down that road cuz we'll talk
Hey,
about that for a
I don't
long
even know what to
time.
do with myself right
Pretty
now.
crazy. But yeah. So all that to say, the technology aspect, where kids are barely, I feel like, getting by in today's time or doing the bare minimum to get by in public schools or just education in general. That's one of the detriments that I see. So, like, it's really cool in
100%.
aspects like, you using Chat GPT for work. Like, you can critically think. It's not like Chat GPT is robbing you of doing that.
It
It's
is in
just
some
you've,
ways, which is the scary part, because even though I did grow up and spend a at least a few years of a professional career without that, even now, it is like taking away from my ability to better critically think through how to respond to an email in a
yeah,
professional and friendly way using plain language and addressing every single topic. That's after 20, that's after 30 years of being just a person without it. Think of that through your
yeah.
entire period of high school.
And
Not like
especially
skipping out on it. Like this is for like over a little bit over a couple years that it what how long has it been out?
I'm handful of years. I'm not too
Yeah,
sure.
like maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
And I can already guarantee you there would be a noticeable difference in the ability to do one thing versus the other.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not like insanely, but to the point where if you really broke it down, you could probably identify a difference. Think of that over 4 years with that's all you know.
Yeah. which is horrifying. And introducing that powerful tool to, a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid who already probably doesn't care. I mean, looking at us when we were that young, back in our day, that
Back in our day, when we were walking to school uphill
we're a
both ways,
bunch of whippersnappers,
bunch of whippersnappers there.
but it's just like you had some semblance of, you were a kid.
Okay, I'm done.
You don't have your brain isn't fully formed to make good choices at that time.
It's
So
still
like
not.
imagine
I've
in
been
yeah,
trying to form it that way for a long time and it just has not worked out. So I'm trying to figure out how that path looks. So keep
I
going.
hear that's a low T thing that you're
Gosh damn, dude. You really got to, I'm not even messing with you right now. You just got to keep bringing it up.
Oh,
Eventually this will
I
be.
have to read a comment that was left on our last podcast about
Yeah,
that.
Zach left it. We talked about it on the last podcast. We can't talk about
Zach's
more that we can't talk about we can't talk about the comments left on the podcast more than once because people will pick that up and be like, "Hey, you're just reading the same comment because no one comments on your podcast." And we're gonna say, "Hey, where's your podcast?" They're gonna be like, "I don't have one." We're gonna go exactly. So shut up.
and listen to us
Listen to this one.
pretty much. But yeah, all that to say, wrapping up that previous segment, introducing a powerful tool like that can do a lot of things for someone, introducing that to someone who literally partially doesn't care as is. And it's just like, I can use this done in 5, 10 minutes or whatever, and then go play video games. Sick. I'm gonna do that. And then
Yeah,
that's the established basis that they have for the rest of their life.
bro. I want
It's not a good one.
you know what I want right now?
What's that?
Street tacos.
Some street tacos.
Some street scracos.
Yeah, you're no longer near that other place.
What other place?
Was it you who was telling me, like at your old apartment, there was a street taco place right down the way?
Nope.
Bull crap.
But I mean, there was there, but I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, actually,
Who
no. I
was
mean,
it?
I mean,
Who was it? Because someone
was
was
someone
telling
telling
me,
you this recently?
yeah, within the last month and a half,
I don't
maybe.
think we've talked about that. I mean, but there
Who
were
the heck
some there
was
were
it?
some taco places right up the road from me that I enjoyed going that were street tacos, but I
I haven't been out.
there's this street taco place right up the road from me that I went to the other day. It was the day that we were on the phone and I was like, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna work out.
Mm.
Didn't work
And I
out.
talked you out of it.
Yeah, you really did, which is so mean. I was like, should I work out? You're like, nah, don't do it.
Come play video games. Let's do it.
Legitimately, we ended up doing that, which is a great time. You know, it's the funniest thing. We didn't even get to what we said we were going to talk about.
Right?
It's
That's a
we got
sign of a dang good episode, I think.
honestly, I think we just needed and just to give you guys a little rundown, we're not going to get into everything. Just dating as a 31-year-old man is hard, and it's like today's dating atmosphere is just so
Toxic.
it's not just toxic, it's so individualistic and there's so little care for the other person and on both sides. I'm not saying this is just guys or just girls. It's just well, I mean, I will say I can only experience it from a guy's side, and as a guy, it's just mentally and emotionally taxing in a way that
Extremely.
is and mentally and in a way that is just I don't I'm again I'm not a girl, I can't really say, but I just don't think it's something that someone would be surprised to find out, but it is mentally and emotionally taxing as heck. How many situations or opportunities that you're involved in that promise you a lot or make it feel as if that there's going to be more than something there and then just rip the rug out from under you. And it's just
Yeah.
such a commonplace in guys these days. And there's so many dudes out there that are they say there's a epidemic of male loneliness. I would agree with that. I think it's kind of sounds bitchish, but you know, there is an epidemic of, in my opinion, over selectiveness. And I wouldn't even say like,
Mm.
listen, you have your preferences, whatever, but
No, but
it's
that's a good word. I would use that word honestly.
yeah, it's just like people are focused on getting the 1% of society versus getting someone that actually really cares about them and wants to be with them and actually wants to be the right person for a situation like that. And it is a modern representation of kind of what we were talking about earlier, that the connectiveness that we've created is such a shallow representation of what an actual connection is, that it's
Yeah.
very detrimental to believe that we are more connected by having our phones and having websites and the ways that we interact. The less you connect without human interaction, the less of a connection it becomes and the easier it becomes to become individualistic. So
Yeah.
tying that back into this, dating thing, that has become a prevalent factor in just every damn situation. It's just like, yeah, high expectations, low results.
Big time. And that it's ironic to think about that with technology and how connected we all are, talking about dating apps, talking about social media, talking about texting. You think with the ability to reach out and talk to anyone and having access to more people, from a guy's perspective, more women than any guy has ever had in human history. But yet we are still the loneliest, probably, I would argue, one of the loneliest generations that's potentially ever been.
You know what I compare it to, and you've heard me say this before? It's legitimately like trying to catch minnows with your hand. There's
Mhm.
all these thousands of minnows right there, and you're just like, dude, they're everywhere. And you reach in and nothing,
Yep.
nothing, nothing. And it's crazy how like the more that, and that's it's I don't mean to be Mr. Miyagi or something, but it's very representative of how the process actually works when the more you try to reach and grab, the harder it is to get and it's
Mm.
pushed away. But
Yeah.
the more still you are and complacent and accepting of the situation in general, those minnows just start to swim over your hand because they accept it as something that's there. And that
Yeah.
is just that is legitimately a picture perfect representation of what dating has always been like, but in terms of modern times, in terms of today, there's a lot of factors that have muddled that, and now it's like trying to do it in muddy water.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just
And my
unfortunate
analogies are just on point.
on point to
Yeah,
a
that was a good one
T,
though. In
some
terms of
might
the
say.
stop it. In terms of the water being clear, and now the factor of how dating is now is the water being muddy and you can't even see the minnows. All you know is they're there.
Yep.
Man, put that on a t-shirt and sell it. All right, go on.
We should do it. Thoughtify.
Podcast about anything and everything.
But yeah, I mean just the other crap that we deal with too that you think being able to text someone and just talk would breed a ground of intentionality, right? Towards just like, oh, I like you, you like me. We're having a great conversation. Like, theoretically, if it's like this, it's only going to get better. But, having access to all the options that people do today, towards just, you could have the 99 boxes checked, but this one, I'm going to see if someone else out there can check that last box to make sure, just to see. And it becomes an addiction. Like, I
Mhm.
deleted all of my apps and it has become like it's such a dopamine release for a lot of people. And it's just I think that I'm not saying it for everyone, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are just addicted to the idea of what's next, just like going to the slot machines at a casino. You're just like, I'm gonna spend money, money, money. I'm gonna lose every time, but maybe this next one is gonna be it.
Your high is already on that next one.
Yep. And it's the expectation that people are craving and that they want.
High
And it's just
expectations, low results.
exactly. And it's
But
just
not just because they're that, but because that is now it's gamed to be that versus
yeah,
expectations meeting
the
results in a
paywall
fair
that's
way.
behind it now. Yeah, so it's like if you want to be seen more, give us $50. I mean, come on. That's a bit ridiculous. But then even when you do match with someone or you do have a, from what one would assume from a guy's perspective, like you're feeling it, it's going well, you're like, "Wow, this feels different." But then just the ability with technology breeds the grounds for ghosting just people that up and disappear. I think that is another extremely just frustrating part of, I mean, just anything across the board, being ignored and
Hmm.
dropped like a bad habit is very frustrating. But I think technology, that is one of the significant detriments too, to where it's like, yes, you have access to all these options, potentials, etc. But at the same time, you have more of an ability to be left on red, to be ghosted, and to be left lonely
Well,
despite all those options.
Well, that's what I'm saying in terms of it being a very sad excuse for a connection because
Yeah.
when you don't, like, let's say you build a bridge that only has one half of the bridge built, don't ever expect that bridge to support anything or to suffice anything or to substantiate it. That's your when you build it off of something that is not it already, it's always going to have, and that's the lie that people have told themselves is that we are connecting through I followed you and you followed me. We're
Yeah.
connected. I'm looking at your I'm looking at your life through a window that you don't know I'm looking through. You can't tell when I'm looking at it. All you can tell is that you put something up there for me to see, and I get to come in and look at it whenever I want. And that is not a connection. That has
No.
nothing to do with connecting with someone. And building like dating apps, building something off of that is just it's people wonder why we wonder, and I've been on dating apps forever. I quit that shit a long time ago because of this specific reason, but people wonder why like this stuff doesn't work out, and it's because you are building your connection off of pure superficiality. You're legitimately reading a few sentences and answers and confirming some check boxes and confirming that you think they're a cute person before you actually get to know them. There's billions of situations in life where someone who wouldn't have been someone's first attractive pick was the person they ended up loving more than anyone in their life. And when you condition your brain to only be attracted to the superficial qualities that break down or not even break down, allow you to engage with someone, then don't expect that to not permeate into the way that you act as a person. And that's what I don't think people understand that dating apps do. And that's
Yeah.
why, as guys, we have an extreme sensitivity to that because I think less, guys are more guys are the pursuers. So guys are more willing to open the opportunity to someone that maybe they wouldn't have immediately like they're like, "Hey, I'm more of the pursuant here." So versus having to dictate exactly what it looks like, beggars can't be choosers. I'd rather have something than not have something. I'm not saying that's the overall perspective or way a guy should go at it in general, but that's naturally how guys act.
Yeah.
That's not naturally how girls act. So when you give a girls a tool to hone in on that, and you don't give a guy a tool to hone in on the natural way guys act, you create this situation where girls are all of a sudden like over picky because of the illusion of how many options they have.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's ironic because you're putting forth a world that you want people to see that's not actually you necessarily at
It's
times.
the best
I
parts of
wouldn't
you.
say
It's
at
the
times,
best
I would
pictures.
I would say most of the time. You're
Yeah.
putting forth a fake world that people are fully judging you off of. And that's
Yeah.
just not a fair perspective in front to remotely do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, "Hey, come buy this Ferrari," and then when a person drops by to give you the check, it's like, "Psych, it's a Fiat." You're just like,
But it
"Oh,
starts with F.
exactly." He's not fully wrong,
We were close.
but it's, and all that to say, I'll admit it, I've ghosted before, and I'm not proud of it by any means. I
Yeah,
know,
I know.
gasp. But, like, at the same time, I've hit a realization, I mean, as I've gone through life to where, I mean, you know, as you get older, more mature, really intentionally think about the
When
choices that
does
you've
that
made.
happen?
31 and a half. So
Okay, cool, 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 cool,
I'm
cool.
5 days older than you, so it might be hitting you here shortly
Nice.
because it hit me. Yeah. But just,
Bro,
thinking,
31 and a half.
well, not quite.
Almost. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry.
Almost,
Go
yeah.
on.
Not the point, but um, just going through and realizing like, hey, we're adults here, and I've done a better job, and I've been intentional with doing a better job at, if I'm not feeling something, then I'm going to say it versus disappearing into the abyss and you'll never hear from me again. And it sucks being treated that way because it's happened to me many times, and I've done it a handful of times, and it's just like, you know what? I've hit a point where I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's terrible because I know what
Yeah,
that feeling's like. And ultimately,
100%.
be an adult, have a conversation. You
Hmm.
know, just yes, the conversation sucks for the other person on the other side.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's going to be better in the long run. You're going to feel better about yourself. And then ultimately, hopefully, the other person will be understanding when you talk in a calm, rational manner to just have a conversation. And that is something that is extremely lacking in today's society, just across the board, but then also, especially when it comes to dating, because
Yeah.
it's either an excuse or I'm going to straight up disappear.
Yeah. And
And
that's, I
that's not
mean,
something I want to put forward. I want to be as transparent as I possibly can. Like
well, I
if
just
I'm
want
not
to treat
feeling it,
people how I want to be treated.
yeah, absolutely. And it's just like it's hard because you don't, as a people pleaser, I know you as well, you don't want
What?
to, yeah,
Huh? You gonna call
yeah,
me a people pleaser on a podcast? Huh?
ridiculous.
Ridiculous. I've never
But
heard
like
this in my
you,
life.
yeah, you don't want to disappoint people. You don't want to hurt someone, but at the same time, transparency is the best policy. You know, just have that conversation. And that's, definitely something that I've
P is the best P.
there you go. So I think it's a mixture of a lot of different things as to why dating is so frustrating in today's time. And I think if we would revert back to some good old principle, that it would be a lot different. And just be intentional. Like, don't sit here and match with someone or start talking with someone, and then I'm going to be like, I'm going to talk to 10 other people too. Because that takes away from your experience to actually get to know the person that you're wanting to get to know. And it's
I
just
mean,
where,
I will say to that point though, like I'm not gonna blame someone for something that I know I would do as well. And like when it becomes an addiction, it becomes addiction to try to get as many likes as possible.
oh,
And
for
then if
sure.
you're a girl and you have that same addiction, then you're just gonna, obviously girls are gonna be more favored in terms of likes. So, I mean, I don't listen, we're all given the same set of tools. Just try if you're listening to this and you have any consideration for it at all, try to use them wisely and try to treat someone the way you would want to be treated, not only when you're being seen, but when you're not being seen.
Absolutely.
And if that's a really mean way, then you need to do work on yourself and, not treat people that way. But if you would rather be treated one way versus another, then please, when it comes to these interactions, treat people that way as well. Because my gosh, having 7 dates in a month and they all just go, and you just spend a bunch of money and they all just go south.
Yeah.
That's just a man. I'm sure it's emotionally and wrecking on the other side as well, but listen, it's financially on this side and I can't afford gas.
Yeah.
So
It's, well, I mean
I'm kidding.
that,
I
but
didn't go
like,
on 7 dates in a month. That was a joke.
see,
But
that's
I
impressive.
I went on 17. There was a few
Nice.
missing from that. No, but just for the point of the point, being the point of the
Well,
and the point.
to the
Point that out.
emotional response that starts to develop when you go out, like even couple dates, whatever, be like, yeah, I could definitely see myself going out, continuing to go out with this person. And all of a sudden that person disappears or whatever it is that they, whatever their reasoning is, like emotionally, that is way more significant to anyone than it is to have a conversation, be like, hey, I appreciated our time. I'm not feeling it,
Yeah, it's not
like
going to be
just
fun,
just
but
be an
it's not
adult
going to,
about it.
it's not going to, and at the end of the day, listen, if you're not going to do that because you're more worried about you and your thing than anyone else, and go be you. But at the end of the day, you do very much get what you put out. And if you want people to stop treating you that way in any situation ever, don't treat people that way because it really just brings it back on you. And not even because I'm not even saying karma. I'm just saying in terms of the actual way that you interact with people makes you more likely to receive the results of what you would do. Or I just realized that the in the camera the entire time.
It's fine. It's not a big deal.
No, it's not a big deal. I was just like I was oblivious to that. That's crazy.
We should redo this whole thing.
You know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna delete this.
Yep, let's do it.
Let's
Start
do
from
that.
scratch.
Yep. I
What's
remember
up,
the first at
everybody?
least half
Welcome
of it.
back to this week's
Right.
episode of Thoughtify.
Here we are, starting the episode at 9:08, late time, but guess what, guys? We're here for the
And we're
podcast.
excited. We did not attempt to record before this.
We didn't. Dude, this shirt is way too tight. I need to get rid of this shirt. Like, look how,
Yeah.
yeah. Why didn't you say anything?
Because you normally wear your clothes tight like that.
That's, you didn't have to do that on live podcast. I do enjoy tighter clothing than I do looser clothing, but
Yeah.
sometimes it gets the better of me. So I'm not
Mm,
afraid to admit that I'm also human,
well
a
done.
very
See,
tight
that's
leather human.
transparency in practice. I appreciate that. That's what I appreciate about
TIP,
you.
transparency in practice. TIP.
Ooh,
I like the acronym stuff. Just give
I
them
can.
just the tip. Chase, give them the tip.
Let's digress on that one. Lest we digress.
Well, that's a great place to end it. All right, guys. I love all of you. I'm going to wear a looser shirt next time, but get it while you can because it's pretty nice. And I'm sure Chase um, has something to say about my low T.
No, I'm good. I said it twice already.
Yeah, everyone knows.
But for those that don't know, Keegan has low T, third time's a charm.
I don't. I haven't even gotten it tested. I guarantee when I get it tested, it's going to be super, super high. Either way, uh, appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for listening to our BS. We love you. And keep tuning in because it's only gonna get better or worse from here. We don't know. We'll figure it out.
Either way, you're along for a very exciting ride.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching a ship sink. You're not gonna look away.
Or a rocket exploding
That's horrible.
versus a ship sinking.
I mean, I feel like the explosion's worse because it's actually happened. I
But
know
what if
ships
people
have
aren't on the
sank. I know
rocket?
ships have sank. I'm just saying that in terms of like, there's not been many situations where people have just watched a sip sink.
A sip
A
sink?
sip sink. I watched a ship sink.
Say that 5 times really
Watch
fast.
a shot, 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 shot.
Shubba shank, shubba shank, 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 shank.
Ah, blah, 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 blah.
All right. Great
Anyways,
place to end it. Yep.
end
Thank
it.
you guys for joining. Feel free to share this with all the coolest people that you know, because only the cool people listen to this podcast. And
Be
your
selective.
coolness, yep, your coolness fuels our ability to do this. So we are much appreciative of you guys. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Next week, we'll see what happens. Love you. Good night.
See you guys.